Hey everyone, welcome to Black Cat Crimes, or welcome back if you've seen any of my previous videos. My name is Victoria, and I am so happy to have you here today. I want to dive right into the mysterious disappearance of Diamond Bynum and King Walker. The weekend of July 24th, 2015 started like any normal weekend in the Bynum household. Ariana Walker, the daughter of Eugene Bynum and stepdaughter to Suzanne Bynum, stopped by the house on that Friday night to drop off her son, King Walker. The 2-year-old would stay at his grandparents' house every weekend with Eugene, Suzanne, and his aunt Diamond because Ariana was taking beautician classes at the time, so she would drop him off Friday night. He would stay Friday night and through Saturday while she was taking classes, and then as soon as classes were done, she would pick him up so that she could focus on class and know that he was well taken care of. And Eugene, Suzanne, and Diamond absolutely loved having King with them. King was fun and silly and full of energy. He just loved to be playful, and Diamond Bynum, who was 21 in 2015, was also under the care of her father Eugene and stepmother Suzanne. Diamond has Prader-Willi syndrome, which is a neurological disorder that affects the 15th chromosome. So there's kind of like a spectrum of how it affects people, to the extent that it could affect them, and there are several different symptoms that people can have. So through my research, I found that Diamond actually seemed to have a lot of the really common symptoms of Prader-Willi syndrome. Some of these symptoms are short stature, cognitive deficits, low muscle tone, and a very constant feeling of hunger. And the constant feeling of hunger can lead to overeating in those with Prader-Willi syndrome, especially if their diets aren't restricted, because their body works a little bit different. It doesn't use that many calories because their metabolism is just slower. So what ends up happening is if a diet really isn't closely monitored and restricted in someone with Prader-Willi syndrome, they can actually gain weight very easily. So Diamond was heavyset because of the Prader-Willi syndrome. She just seemed so fun from all the stories I've heard. The other thing that marks Prader-Willi syndrome and is a big reason of why it is a disability is that it causes cognitive deficits. So though Diamond was 21 in 2015, she had the mindset of a 5 or 6-year-old. She was very childlike. And this childlikeness and the young mental capacity would never be something she would outgrow. She would just always kind of be very childlike and kind of at that point of 5 or 6 and not really grow beyond that. But her mother, LaShawn Walker, would share that Diamond had a personality all her own beyond her Prader-Willi syndrome. LaShawn said that she would never believe whenever people told her, Diamond couldn't do things, that she wouldn't be able to do something, and instead LaShawn would try to teach it to her and show her what she should do, and in a lot of cases, Diamond would actually know what to do. She would figure it out, and so LaShawn always felt, and it seems like the whole family always felt that Diamond, though she did need help and she did need care, she was a lot more capable than maybe other people would have thought she was. And Eugene would share that Diamond loved to joke and play. She loved getting her hair done and her nails done, and though she really wasn't capable of living on her own or taking care of herself, she really did like to help around the house. She wanted to do what she could do to help the family. And even if that was just helping you put on your coat, she wanted to be there to help you. And Ariana has talked about how Diamond loved King, her nephew. Though Diamond couldn't babysit on her own or do too much with King, she helped however she could, and she loved playing with him. She would enjoy feeding him and even changing his diaper because she could help Ariana out while also loving her nephew and being with him. So she really enjoyed whenever King came and visited on the weekends. So on the morning of Saturday, July 25th, 2015, Eugene went to work. And then Suzanne, Diamond, and King went about doing their normal Saturday morning routine, having a bath, getting dressed, eating breakfast, and then taking a nap later on. So a little before 10, Diamond had already had her breakfast and gotten cleaned up for the day, and she was ready for a nap already. Another thing about Prader-Willi syndrome is that it can make you really tired. Suzanne said that, Diamond was always ready for a nap. She was always ready to rest and lay down for a little while. So after she had her breakfast, she went and laid down in Suzanne's bed. And while Diamond already laid down, Suzanne was finishing up her morning routine with King. So she was, finishing giving him a bath, getting him dressed, having breakfast, all of the usual 2-year-old things that you do in the morning. And then around 10 a.m., when they were finished with all this, they also joined Diamond for a nap in Suzanne's bed. Suzanne had made it part of her routine on Saturdays to take a nap whenever Diamond and King were taking a nap, just because then she could be rested and ready to go whenever they got up. So Suzanne laid down next to Diamond and put King next to her, and they all fell asleep. And a few hours later, Suzanne would wake up from her nap. Only now, she was alone in the bed. She quickly got up to go look for King and Diamond around the house or outside to see if they were anywhere nearby. And it honestly wouldn't take long for her to come to the horrifying realization that neither King or Diamond were in or around the home. Diamond and King were missing. Suzanne didn't waste any time. She called Eugene at work right away and told him that she couldn't find Diamond or King, so he just dropped everything at work. He said that he knew he needed to be home and looking for them, and that he just dropped everything, jumped in his car, and raced home. And after Suzanne had told Eugene that these two were missing, she then called the police to report them missing as well, because they needed everyone, like all hands on deck situation, looking for these two people. I realized I forgot to mention that they're in Gary, Indiana, so the Gary Police Department are the people who responded to the call and came to the house to take a police report about these two missing children. Because that's what they were. They were both children. Even though Diamond was 21 and capable of some things, and certainly more capable than King as a 2-year-old, she was still a child every bit as much as he was. So that's kind of the mentality that everybody went into with the search, that two missing children had likely wandered off together and needed to be found quickly and brought home to their family so they didn't get hurt out there by themselves, because they couldn't take care of themselves. And even though Diamond was 21 and capable of some things, she wasn't that much more capable than King at 2 years old of really being able to take care of herself, let alone a toddler. She loved people and she loved her nephew. I have no doubt that she would have done everything she possibly could to take care of King if they found themselves alone for any length of time, but she just wasn't capable of that. She needed that help and support to be able to do these things. And so police and the family knew that they really, really needed to find them as soon as possible. Suzanne wasn't completely sure about how long the two had been missing because she had been asleep, though in a couple different reports I've seen it written as that they went missing somewhere around 11 a.m. But like I said, Suzanne was asleep, so this is definitely like an approximation of what time they might have wandered off. But the thing they did know is that they couldn't have gotten that far on their own. Their best guess was that Diamond had decided to take King for a walk with her, because sometimes she did like going on independent walks by herself in the neighborhood. Unfortunately, though, the Bynums had just moved homes a few months before, and so while she was used to walking on her own in Hammond, Indiana, she was not used to walking around on her own in Gary, Indiana. In the previous neighborhood, she knew the route, the geography of the area, and her neighbors knew of her. So, the neighbors knew about Diamond's condition and how to help her. So, they could kind of keep an eye on her while she was walking around, and if something happened, they would be able to step in and help her get home. But that hadn't happened yet in Gary, Indiana. So Diamond wouldn't have known her way home or where she was going, and nobody in the neighborhood would have really been like on high alert if they saw her outside to be like, hey, what's Diamond doing? Does she need help? Where is everybody going? Like, keep an eye on her. It's kind of one of those situations where she left thinking she was doing something that she'd done many times before and just decided to take King with her. But once she got outside, she probably was pretty lost and didn't know what to do. The family has said time and time again in interviews that they didn't think that Diamond and King together would be able to get more than a few blocks. And that's exactly what they would tell police when police arrived to start searching for them. So the responding officers would take an offense report when they arrived at the Bynum home. And I wasn't completely sure what a offense report was. Like, I've heard of incident reports and, obviously arrest reports and things like that. But I haven't really heard of an offense report. And when I looked it up, there wasn't a whole lot on it, even like specifically searching what it would be in Indiana. So from what I found, it's kind of just like a call report or an incident report where basically like there's not like an accident that happened, there's not, someone being arrested, there wasn't a crime, but something happened, they got the call, and now they need to make a report about it. So it seems like it's kind of interchangeable with like what an incident report would be, but if you are familiar with this term and you know more about that, please feel free to let me know in the comments down below. And so police, of course, started their search in the immediate area because they agreed with the family. They didn't think that Diamond and King would be able to get very far on their own, and likely were just wandering somewhere in the area lost. And while police were looking in the immediate area, Eugene was in his car driving up and down streets nearby, looking to see if he could find any sign of the two. On top of searching the area, police were also talking to neighbors and anybody walking around in the area to see if they'd seen Diamond and King, but they really hadn't, and there didn't seem to be like witness sightings. Nobody had seen them walk by. Really, the fact that nobody was seeing them, that they weren't just like going around a corner and finding them there, like waiting and sitting, or like they weren't finding them, near the house or on a side street or something, genuinely shocked everybody. Everybody thought that they were just going to be sitting somewhere waiting or, hanging out somewhere nearby because they couldn't find their way home, and it would be just, we need more hands on deck to search for them and get them help so they're not out all night, and then once we find them, great, we can all go home and be happy. But that's not what happened. They weren't finding them. They weren't anywhere in the area. It's like they just were picked up and moved away out of this area. Somehow, these two had vanished. In an interview with Crime Stoppers Case File Chicago, an investigator with the Gary Police Department would explain that after that initial area search of just the neighborhood from where Diamond and King had gone missing, they broke Gary into 4 different quadrants so that they could do a really detailed search of the whole city. Basically, they would use these 4 quadrants so that they could go in and do grid searches of the area and like tick off each area and be like, they're not here, they're not here, they're not here. Now, I want to pause here for a second before we go into what the police did. For the last several years in interviews, the families of Diamond and King have said that they don't feel like Gary police did enough. They say that they feel like the police didn't take this disappearance seriously enough from the beginning, and therefore they weren't able to get enough information to find them, and had they taken it more seriously at the beginning, then maybe we would know where Diamond and King are today, or they could have been brought home already. So I wanted to let you know that before I went into talking about what efforts the police took, because, I don't want to write off the family's feelings, and we're going to go into more depth about their complaints and what they feel the specific failings of Gary police are, but I just wanted to put that out there, that though it seems like there were some initial searches done, they feel like Gary police have definitely dropped the ball overall in this investigation. Also, before we go into the details of the search, one thing that I found really frustrating while researching this case, and maybe it's just my inexperience so far, but trying to research into specific dates of when things happened in terms of the search efforts or when certain things were discovered, there just doesn't seem to be dates out there. And it could just be because, Gary police have been keeping this a little close to the vest. That'll come up later too. But, I can't find a lot of dates. I have a general timeline, but certain things happen in the search and I don't know if they happened before this or after that or all at the same time. So I'm just going to kind of talk about everything that was found, and then we can talk about it all in terms of a theory later on, because honestly, I had no idea what days this stuff happened. I searched really hard. I watched everything I could get my hands on. And at a certain point, I was just kind of rereading the same article basically over and over again. So hopefully it'll all make sense. And I tried to put it in chronological order, then add in the other details where they felt necessary. Police started with this 4-quadrant search, looking through, doing a grid search, searching for Diamond and King. There was a really collective effort from the police force, what I can understand. Like, all the officers were out there combing these areas, looking for any sign of King and Diamond. But, I mean, they searched for 2 days after this initial search, and nothing. There's just no sign of them. From what I can tell, like, they weren't even finding witnesses who had possibly seen them or, getting any weird sightings of them. And I definitely want to take a minute to talk about that, because I haven't described everything about Diamond and King yet, but King at the time he went missing was 2 years old, about 3 feet tall, 35 pounds, had black hair and brown eyes, and had dreadlocks in his hair. Diamond was 21, but she was only 4'8". She had brown eyes, black hair, she was about 240 pounds, and she walked with a limp. So Diamond was 4'8" and walked with a limp. And I'm not saying this to make fun of her appearance at all. I am trying to make a point with this. So I'm 5'1". I'm short. People, when they meet me for the first time, when they walk up to me, anybody who's 5'3" or taller will be like, wow, you're short. It's automatically noticeable. So 4'8" is shockingly short in an adult. That's wow, you're super short. I was 4'8" in 3rd or 4th grade, because I was 5'1" in 6th grade when I stopped growing. So that means I had to be somewhere around 4'8" in 3rd or 4th grade. So as 5'1", 25-year-old, at 21, Diamond was nearly half a foot shorter than I am. Anyone who saw an adult at that height would be shocked. It's shocking to anyone to be like, oh, you're short. Yeah, you're short. Even for me, my great-grandmother is 4'10". So, I mean, I have to bend down to hug her. And when I walk up to her, I see straight over the top of her head. And I'm, like I said, 5'1". I'm below the average height for a woman. So, I mean, 4'8" is very short. It is child height. So I can honestly say that I feel like if someone had seen Diamond and King walking around in Gary that day and had been paying any sort of attention, not just totally zoned out and beyond whatever's happening around them, had been paying some sort of attention to their surroundings, seeing a 4'8" girl with a limp walking with a 2-year-old would be really noticeable for either one of 2 reasons. One, you'd be like, wow, that's a really short adult. And a limp would be a characteristic that you would just notice, usually. Or they would be like, why are those 2 kids out just walking on the side of the street together? Say that when I was 4'8" in 3rd or 4th grade, that would have been way too young to take care of a 2-year-old by myself. So I'm sure someone would be like, why are those 2 kids out and about by themselves? It would have been something that would have caught your attention if, once again, like I said, you weren't totally zoned out, just totally not paying attention. So the fact that there were no sightings of them that at least have been shared. I can't find any reports of someone coming to the police and saying oh, I saw them here, or I saw them there. That is just mind-boggling to me, because they are such a distinct duo that I feel like someone should have seen them. So this grid search was conducted for 2 days, and after that was complete, because they really had looked through all of Gary, they brought in a group called District 1. So District 1 is or was, I don't know if it's still something that they use in Indiana. It was a group of police officers, volunteers, people with a lot of resources from nearby cities and even other states who could come in and help do these searches on a bigger scale. So they had, hundreds of volunteers, helicopters, dogs brought in, all these different search resources that could level up the search and hopefully find King and Diamond. So with Division 1 brought in, the searches would restart, but this time with more people and resources. They, along with the family, were searching places that Diamond and King could possibly be hiding. The family talks about the fact that they searched a lot of abandoned houses and buildings, really looking through all of them to see if they could be hiding anywhere. Now, at some point during the search, they were able to get a silver alert put out for Diamond. Both Diamond and King were treated as missing endangered people and children, but at the time in Indiana, a silver alert could only be issued for missing and endangered adults and not missing endangered children. This would be changed in 2018 to allow children to be put on this alert too, who weren't just kidnapped, but that's something that doesn't really apply to this case yet, so just a silver alert was put out for Diamond. And if you don't know what a silver alert is, it is kind of similar and yet not similar at all to an Amber Alert. So it's an alert that's put out to warn people in the area that there is a missing endangered person out there who we need to keep an eye out for. It's not like an abduction or anything like that. It's a situation where an adult left on their own, but that adult does not have the mental capacity or physical capacity to take care of themselves. For instance, this is something we get a lot of down in Florida, where I live, because, people retire down here, and then unfortunately they have dementia or Alzheimer's, and they wander out of their houses, or they, get in their car and drive because they didn't sell the car after they lost the ability to drive. And so they're putting themselves in danger by, disappearing, and nobody knows where they are or how to contact them. But cognitively, they're not there to make those decisions. Whenever we hear all the time and missing person cases, like, they're an adult, they can go missing if they want to. This type of alert is for adults who, even if they wanted to go missing, they shouldn't, because they can't necessarily take care of themselves. Really, them being missing is putting themselves in immediate danger or distress. So for a silver alert to be issued, basically the family of that person or the caretaker has to show police that they have a mental impairment that can be credited by a medical professional. So basically like a doctor who can say, yes, they have this impairment, we need to be looking for them. Additionally, there also must be enough descriptive information about the person or what they're wearing or what car they're in, things like that, for police to feel that it's helpful to broadcast this information. So this is where, things are just it's kind of crazy to think about. So the silver alert was out there. There were news broadcasts going on at the time, interviews with the family. The police were searching. Hundreds of people were searching for Diamond and King. The family was searching for Diamond and King. Their faces were, I hope, everywhere, but it really did seem like there was a real effort to find them. And yet, there don't seem to be any sightings of these two. Like, no one who's like, oh, I saw them walking down this street, or, oh yeah, I saw them leave their house around this time, or, oh yeah, I saw them, buying candy here, or something like that. Like, there seems to be zero sightings that at least have been shared with the public, but it doesn't really seem like they had any information about where they may have gone that day or what may have happened to them. And the reason that I keep saying that there's no witness sightings that have been shared with the public is because there is a mention in an interview where the family is telling them to re-interview witnesses to see if they can get any more information. So I could not find any information about who those witnesses may be or what they may have seen, but I feel like that's a good indication that there may be witnesses, and that police have just not shared that information with us at this time. And at some point through all these searches, dogs were brought out to search for the scent of Diamond and King. They tracked their scent to 2 locations, a Go-Lo gas station and an abandoned house. When police went to this Go-Lo gas station, unfortunately, some of the security footage, especially from like those days, had already been deleted. And what footage they were able to get didn't have any sign of Diamond and King on it. Most places don't keep their security footage that long. It's more of like an in case something happens rather than a we're going to track everything so that we have information if something happens. Like, they are only going to keep it for 24, 48 hours or something like that. So, you know, if police hadn't brought these search dogs out right away, then there's a really good chance that, you know, they didn't get there in time to get any security footage if Diamond and King had been there. And as I said, the second location was an abandoned home, but there was really no sign of King or Diamond there, like nothing left behind that would point to if they really had been there or why. So I'm not completely sure if the dogs were brought out before or after they started searching the abandoned houses. So I think that was the District 1 search where, you know, they got really deep with like hundreds of people searching everywhere they could. I think it would make sense that they brought the dogs out before, because then that would make sense of like why they were searching abandoned houses and buildings. But I think the other side of that is that they didn't bring the dogs out early enough to like get the gas station footage. So like on the one hand, I think I can't tell because they didn't give us dates for any of this information. So I'm going to guess that the dogs were brought out early, and that's what led them to searching the abandoned houses and buildings, because they did track their scent there, and that the Go-Lo gas station just deleted the footage pretty quickly. Because that's a pretty common practice. And while there were a lot of these initial searches, it seems like, I think the searches stopped pretty quickly. Like, they slowed down pretty quickly after this. And after 6 months, the leads and tips dried up completely. Now, based on an article by NBC News, it would seem like there wouldn't be any more tips for a while still either. I think from 6 months to a year, if not longer, there weren't any tips coming in. And at this point, especially, I think, you know, the family had always wanted FBI support. But at this point, you know, a year in with no leads for the past 6 months, the family was like, why can't you bring in the FBI to help? They really wanted the FBI to take over and get involved, but there seemed to be no move on Gary Police Department's part to put the FBI in place to take over. The family just didn't understand why Diamond and King, who are 2 people who would seem to very much qualify for FBI help, you know, weren't meeting the criteria for them to come in and take over this investigation from Gary, which I have to agree with. Diamond and King are 2 young, endangered, missing children. And so why wouldn't a group like the FBI, who has greater resources and probably are more used to looking for these kind of people versus Gary, Indiana Police Department, like, why can't they come in and help? That's what the family wanted to know. They were really saying, okay, we want the FBI to help, but if you can't bring them in to help, just tell us why. Explain why our loved ones don't qualify for the FBI's help. Eugene has said in a few interviews that he doesn't believe that King and Diamond are in Gary anymore. He explained that it only takes 10 minutes to get through Gary, Indiana, and they were on the edge of town, so it would have been really easy had they pushed themselves and gone way outside their comfort limit and gotten lost. You know, Diamond and King could have wandered outside the borders of Gary, Indiana, and someone definitely could have taken them outside of Gary. And this kind of ties into what I think most theories are on what happened to Diamond and King. It doesn't seem like there was any evidence whatsoever of like breaking and entering or forced entry to get to Diamond and King. And so pretty much everybody agrees that yes, Diamond and King left the house of their own free will, that they very likely just went for a walk. I think personally that maybe King woke up from his nap and that woke Diamond up first. And we know that Diamond loved her family and she really liked being helpful and she loved her, nephew. So maybe whenever King woke up and then woke her up and Suzanne was still asleep, Diamond thought, oh, I could help by taking him for a walk. That way the house is quiet for Suzanne. She can sleep a little bit longer and we'll just get out of the house for a bit. So she took King with her to just go for a walk. And then something happened after they left the house. So I believe that whatever happened after they left the house happened very shortly after they left the house. I really don't think they got that far because there just weren't any sightings that we know of them. So I don't think they were just wandering around Gary all day, listless and without purpose, because someone should have seen them then. Rather, pretty quickly after they left the house, someone with bad intentions happened upon them and took full advantage of this situation, making it a crime of opportunity. Maybe someone saw the two of them together and thought they were two young children walking on their own, so they stopped and managed to lure the two of them into their car. Another possibility could be that they actually did manage to get more than a few blocks away from the house. Maybe they, wandered a little bit further than, planned, or that a little further than Diamond could handle. And she just looked totally lost from that point on. And that Diamond wouldn't know that, the trick of no matter how lost you are, you've got to look confident. You got to look like you know where you're going, like you're following where you're going, you know exactly what's happening. And that way you don't have those people who are like, oh, are you lost? Can I help you? You need to go this way. Let me do this. And take advantage of the fact that you don't know where you are. And so she wouldn't know to do that. She wouldn't know that she needs to keep a cool face and be like, okay, well, I have no idea where I am, but I'm just going to keep walking while I try to figure it out. Or maybe I'll, stop and look at this window and then double back and do my best to try to find my way home. She could have looked very lost and scared, and maybe even King was crying a little bit because he's like, great, now she's scared and we don't know where we are. And someone stopped and was like, oh no, let me help you find your way home. I'll take you home to your parents. And they very likely would have gone not only willingly, but happily with someone under those circumstances. And that person just had the worst kind of intentions and took advantage of them. And I think a third possibility is that someone who knew the family or knew of Diamond and her limitations saw her and King walking that day. She could have recognized this person and been like, oh my gosh, thank you, someone's found us. And maybe even she didn't get that far from the house already. And, this person had stopped and been like, oh no, what are y'all doing out? Let me take you home. Let me take you to your parents. Or maybe they were lost at this point and they were like, oh, well, I'll take you back to your parents' house, and helped her get back. Or even, it could have been something like, hey, we're not that far away from your house. Let me just drive you back. I'm sure y'all are tired. Here's some snacks. Just jump in the car. And, giving those kids that false sense of like, oh, this person that I know is going to take care of me, is going to take me home, all is well. And they just got in the car. And that just, all of the situations break my heart. But I think that any of them are possible because unfortunately, Diamond wouldn't necessarily know to not go with a stranger, and maybe especially not to go with someone unless there's a reason for you to go with them. That even those who you do know and should be able to trust can take advantage of that a lot of the time. And so I think that any of those are a possibility. What's kind of agreed on top of the fact that, they left the house voluntarily, that's what we're all agreeing on. The next thing that is agreed upon is that this is a crime of opportunity. It doesn't seem like there's any evidence of the two somehow being lured from the home or drawn out of the home. And it doesn't seem like there was any sort of like grooming situation that could have been going on with Diamond. She wasn't like talking to someone and having like an online relationship that nobody knew about under her parents' noses or anything that would have been like, okay, so this is the plan. We take a nap, we go to bed, you wake up before Suzanne, you leave, you disappear with this person. Like, that's a lot of forethought. That's a lot of planning. And like making sure that Suzanne doesn't wake up, like, having had this whole relationship under their noses, having, managed to get out of the house and all that would have been a big undertaking. But what really makes it improbable is, like, if that's the situation that happened, then why on earth would she have taken King? He wouldn't have been needed for any of that. So that just kind of throws all of those options out the window. There's way too many holes that can be poked in the theories of, like, her being groomed or someone luring him out of the house together. It just doesn't really seem to fit. They definitely left the house, and then whatever happened afterwards was a crime of opportunity, not like the plan was for them to leave the house and then someone was going to get them from there. The family, though, over the past 7 years have not given up on their search for Diamond and King. They've asked for FBI help, worked for advocacy groups, and even pushed the Gary Police Department to restart the investigation, like relook everywhere, re-interview everybody they can, and just start it again because the case has gone cold. So the family has had several complaints about the work that the police did on the case initially. They say that they don't feel that police took their disappearance, seriously enough at the beginning. And I think it does show a little bit just in everybody's mentality at the beginning that they didn't really think Diamond and King could get that far at first. They were probably just around the corner, scared somewhere, like they were going to find them. And then they didn't. And suddenly it's like, oh shit, where could they have gone? Like, they're gone. And so, the family has said that hurt the investigation, that they weren't pushing hard enough in those first early days to get as much searching done and to talk to as many people as possible. And had they done that, the family feels they would probably have answers already about what happened to Diamond and King, or they could have found them. The second thing they're really upset about is that Gary police are refusing to hand over the case file, like the police report on what they have done in their investigation so far and what they found, because the family wants to hire a private investigator to help search for Diamond and King. But because it has been so long since they've gone missing, they will need that, police report, the initial work that police has done on the case, to give to the PI to be able to get the investigation going, to be able to have that PI start looking into everything for them. But police have refused to hand over this file. And Joshua Williams, King's father, said in an interview a few years ago, they're trying to cover their tracks. I really think they dropped the ball in the beginning, and that's why they're pushing to not release the report. So that's how the family feels about why they won't release the report to them. But police are talking about that this is still an active investigation. They're still getting leads and tips, and when they do get them, they pursue them to their, end. That whenever they get to the point where they're like, okay, we can rule this out, they pursue it. But just because it's an active investigation doesn't mean that other people can work on it. That's where I have trouble with it, because yeah, you're getting some leads and tips in every once in a while. They even said that recently they had a tip that led them all the way down to Florida. So they were here recently looking into things and gathering information about that lead. So, they're pursuing these leads, but everybody knows that police do not have the time and resources to just exclusively focus on a single case. That's just never going to be an option. So why on earth, 7 years into the investigation, would you not give a private investigator who can put their time and resources very specifically into a single case and let them look for them? Like, what is the deal? I understand if you want to maintain the integrity of the case, that way to press charges later on, but I mean, come on, it's been 7 years. Like, no matter how much police care, no matter how much they want to work on a case constantly and want to give the family answers, they just can't do that. They don't have the time, they don't have the money, they don't have the resources. And so if the family is willing to hire a private investigator and even willing to understand that there may be risks involved in that, such as like, you know, certain parts of the case breaking down or the integrity of the case not being upheld to press charges later on. If you can explain that to them, then why can't they take on that risk? Like, if they're just like, we just need answers no matter what happens, like, let them hire a private investigator who can focus all their time and resources on it. And, I mean, people hire private investigators all the time. Let them hire a private investigator and just give them what they need. Like, what the heck, my dude? Like, what are they doing in Gary, Indiana, the police department, who hasn't solved this case in 7 years? What could they have that's so essential that they can't hand it over to a private investigator? Because if they had something that was super telling or super related to the case, then they should be sharing more of that information, or being like, listen, we're making progress, we're about to solve it, so everybody needs to sit tight. Like, the family has even made statements that they are not worried so much about pressing charges, that they just really want their family members back alive and well. And so, like, on the one hand, if they can't come back alive and well, will they want to press charges if they have answers? And two, something to keep in mind is that this was in the Chicago Crime Files feature that I watched, and that was recorded like a year after Diamond and King went missing. So now 7 years later, they may very much be thinking that they want to press charges against whoever has taken away their loved ones. So, you know, if Gary, Indiana police officers can really just sit down and be like, this is what can happen if you hire a PI. These are the reasons we don't want you to. But if you want to hire them, we'll give you the information. Just understand this, this, and this. Then, like, let them. Why won't you let them? Why won't you help them? So there's two other things that have happened between Diamond and King's family and the Gary Police Department. One thing is that LaShawn Walker's phone calls no longer go answered. They do not answer her calls, and if they do answer them, they don't return them anymore. She doesn't hear back from the police department when she calls, which, like, unacceptable. What the heck? I cannot imagine how any police officer could sit easy knowing that they ignored the family members of people who have gone missing, especially a 2-year-old and another, you know, basically child who have gone missing. Like, anybody who has gone missing, their family members are worried, they're looking for them, and in this situation, like, how dare they not answer her calls or call her back? What the heck? And to make matters worse, I guess there have been some press conferences lined up with the Gary Police Department and, you know, Diamond and King's family, and they have pulled out of them. They've pulled out of, it sounded like when I read the research, that they've pulled out of a couple of press conferences that they haven't held with them to help promote, you know, King and Diamond's disappearance, you know, where they're at in the investigation, like, getting their names back out there. And, like, what is wrong with them? Why would you schedule a conference with the family, a news conference, to keep their loved ones' faces and names out there and then cancel them? You think it'd be beneficial to keep this information out there. So how dare they? I could understand if there was some sort of, like, major emergency, we'll reschedule, you know, we'll rework this, but they're just straight up canceling on them and, like, not participating. And, Like, you're telling me that it's still an active investigation and you don't want to give up the police report because we're still looking into everything, but you, like, won't do the most basic things for the family. You won't even call them back. Like, no wonder they think you're doing a shit job, because you're showing them you don't care by doing these things. Of course, they're going to have to go out of their way to get their loved ones' names out there, to highlight what happened to them, to say, like, look at what they're doing. We need more help, because honestly, I agree. In my opinion, I don't think that the Gary Police Department is showing that they care at all. To me, it doesn't feel like that whenever they're treating the family of these missing people so badly and dropping the ball in these different ways. Because really, the worst part is that this family, just like every other family of missing people, they just want their children back alive. They just want their loved ones to be home with them. And that's the thing. This family does believe Diamond and King are still alive out there. The whole family refuses to give up hope that they'll come back one day. Ariana said in a 2021 interview, "I'm still hopeful that my son is coming back, so it's hard to move forward in my life." And King's father, Joshua, also refuses to stop hoping that his son will come home alive. And it's statements like this that make the idea that police won't hand over what's needed for the family to hire a PI and get someone who can put more emphasis on the search, like, in their hands to help them, just breaks my heart. On the one hand, I understand it's still somewhat of an active case and that they're pursuing leads, but let somebody else help. The family just really wants answers. It's been 7 years. A new set of eyes on this case could be exactly what they need to get it moving in the right direction again. But unfortunately, it really does look like police are going to hang on to the report for this time being. And as we've seen in cases before, horrible people have done horrible things to this family who have already lost so much. Eugene had been really active on Facebook whenever Diamond and King first went missing. You know, he was on there all the time, spreading news about them, just like doing whatever he could. And someone hacked into his Facebook account to post a fake confession of, like, him admitting to having killed Diamond and King and disposed of them. And of course, this led police on, like, a side goose chase about that. They had to research this, but found out pretty quickly it was hacked. And honestly, it never seems like there was any suspicion on the family. That seems like they were cleared pretty quickly, considering I've never seen one even, like, inkling of an implication in the research I've done that they could be involved in either of the disappearances. But, like, this awful person hacked into his Facebook account that he was using to try to find his daughter and grandson and posted a fake confession. What the hell is wrong with people? Like, that's never funny. I don't get how people ever think this stuff is funny. Like, what goes through their head to make them do that? This is like a sadistic level of bullshit. Like, what? And I mean, after this, police had investigated it, they realized it was just hacked. Eugene didn't post this. Eugene backed off of social media completely. Like, he just stopped using all of his social media because that had been out there now. They'd been able to delete it and get it out of immediate circulation, but nothing has ever gone on the internet. And now he's just really afraid to use social media. It's not something he wants to do. And Daisy, Diamond's grandmother and King's great-grandmother, shared a horrific story about someone called the family's house. I don't know which family member exactly, but called them and said that they had King and Diamond chained up in their basement. Like, once again, who in the hell would think that was funny? Why would you call a grieving family who is literally going through the worst time of their entire lives and call them and tell them something so awful? There's really no information beyond, like, this call happening. She mentions it, just like that one line that someone called and said that they had Diamond and King chained up in their basement, which that's enough to make my skin crawl and my heart drop and just like everything hurt for them, because why? What is the point? It's not funny. It's not fun. It's pure sadism and just like one of the worst ways possible of like continuing to torment a family who's already going through so much. But unfortunately, I really don't know any more about that. I don't know if like they were able to track down where the call came from and like prove that it was a hoax or something like that. But judging by the fact that there's like zero information about it other than Daisy saying something about it, like I don't think it played a big role. I think it was just someone being a dick. And I hope horrible things happen to them and they've led an awful life ever since then, because they deserve it. They are awful people. I don't know who they are, but I hope their life sucks every single minute. They definitely deserve the horrific and tortured life that they have coming for them. In 2021, the family of King and Diamond held an event in Dolly Plaza in Chicago to talk about King and Diamond going missing. It was one of the many events that they have done to keep Diamond and King's name out there and in the public. LaShawn Walker would be quoted as saying, "King and Diamond have family that love them and miss them very much. We want to find them and we want justice for our missing children. Not a day goes by that my heart doesn't ache for the loss of King and Diamond." July 25th is the 6-year mark, and it is a reminder that we must never stop searching. And on Mother's Day of this year, 2022, the family would join several other families, again in Dolly Plaza, because they were holding an event for the mothers of missing Black women and children to speak. LaShawn spoke there alongside the mothers of other missing women, such as Karen Phillips, who is the mother of Kiara Coles, a postal worker who went missing several years ago, and Chantanelle Howard, the mother of Jerica Laws, who went missing 7 years ago. They all wanted to talk about their loved ones and the efforts that aren't being made and keep their names out there for people to realize that they're still missing and what these families are all going through. And earlier this year as well, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children would release an updated age progression photo of what King would look like possibly now at 9 years old. 9 years old. That is just absolutely heartbreaking to think about. He was 2 when he went missing, and now they're having to not just release an age progression photo but update it, because I think they did one when he was 7, and now they just released a new one of him being 9, and that just breaks my heart. So, if you're in Indiana and honestly everywhere, because who knows where they could have ended up if they're still alive today, it is just so touching to hear the family talk about King and Diamond still to this day, believing that they feel they'll come home. I think it's hard to give up that hope, and honestly, they've all have embraced that hope. They're saying, until we know, we're going to believe that they're going to come home to us. As I shared those quotes earlier, Ariana and Joshua feel that way. They hope that King will come home to them. And LaShawn has been quoted as saying, "I don't feel like they're deceased or anything. As long as I don't see a body, they don't bring me a body, I'm going to believe. No news is good news." And I think this really sums up the feeling of everybody in the family about Diamond and King. Everybody is saying that until they know what happened to them or that something bad happened to them, they're gonna believe they're alive and they're not gonna stop looking. LaShawn has a plan for Diamond when they come back. "We're going to have so much fun. I'm going to try my best to teach her about strangers and all that type of stuff, about wandering off. We're just going to make up for all the missed birthdays, and hopefully we can go on a vacation or something just to spend time with each other." And at some point, Eugene and Suzanne moved out of the home where Diamond and King had gone missing from in Gary. And when they moved, they didn't set up Diamond's room yet. Rather, all of her things are stored in a closet in their home. but not because they've given up a hope that she'll come home, but rather they want Diamond to have whatever she may want for her room, and they want to let her pick everything out and decorate it however she wants to, and they'll help her put all her things out. So they just have waited to put her room together so that she can do it, so that she can choose her room and do whatever she wants with it. They also said they may take her to get cheeseburgers at Nick and George's in Hammond, Indiana, where they originally lived before they moved to Gary, because that was Diamond's favorite place to eat. She absolutely loved their cheeseburgers. She really loved the restaurant, and they had actually just gone there for her 21st birthday for dinner a few months before she went missing. And I think something that kind of gives further fuel to this hope that Diamond and King are out there somewhere is that Ariana did submit her DNA to police, and I think to some of the other, missing person networks, and nothing has come up because, remember, she is not only King's mother, but she's Diamond's sister. So if either of them had been found and entered into some sort of system with their DNA, they would have popped up. Her DNA would have matched with theirs, and then they would have that. But it's been 7 years, and there's been nothing. Nothing's matched to Ariana's DNA. And Ariana said these sweet words about King. He brights up everything. When I'm in a bad mood or anything, he makes me laugh. And Joshua shared a sweet message for his son that I want to share. If he's out there watching the TV screen, this is your dad talking to you. I love you. Eugene had a very similar message to share with King and Diamond as well. He said, if they are watching this show, I want you to know that Daddy and Papa, he loves you, he misses you, and he's doing everything in his power to bring you both back home. I mean, this family is just refusing to give up. They love their family members, and they are trying to find them. And through the past 7 years, there have been leads. Even in 2022, there was a lead in Florida, but it doesn't seem like anything is giving any information that's going to find them. But I'm really impressed by this family who has pulled together and refused to stop looking for Diamond and King. They refuse to give up on them. They haven't stopped their own searches, and they refuse to stop pressing police to do more and to get more help and to do all the things that could possibly find them. And they're willing to pay a private investigator to take over this investigation if possible. Gary police may not be answering LaShawn's calls or returning them, but you can still call Gary police with any information that you may have if you know anything about what happened to King or Diamond. If you were in Gary 7 years ago and saw something or heard something, if you heard a rumor at like a party or at a house, like just someone even passing by said something that you remember, call. Give that information. It's amazing how sometimes the littlest bit of information can make all the puzzle pieces fall into place. So if you do know something, or you've heard something, or you think you saw something but you felt like it wasn't that important, let the police decide that. Let the people who have all of the information decide that. So call them and tell them your information. You can remain anonymous. I think it is more helpful if you can be followed up with, but you can remain anonymous. And I think everybody would rather have the anonymous information than have you not call because you don't want to be followed up with. So just keep that in mind. LaShawn has begged anyone with information to come forward about her loved ones. I'm asking if anyone knows anything, please say something. Somebody knows something. It's hard to continue living life every day not knowing whether they are being hurt or something. And so I'm going to share with you the numbers that you can call right now. They're going to be up on screen. I'm going to include them in the description below, so they'll be in all sorts of places. You can contact the Gary Police Department at 1-866-CRIME-GP or 219-881-1260. You can also contact the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST, which is 1-800-843-5678. There are just so many people beyond Diamond and King who have been affected by their disappearance. Every member of this family has been hurting to this day and is still hurting. LaShawn explains that it's hard to go on not having answers, and Ariana says that she has trouble moving forward because she wants her son to come home, and I can't imagine trying to move forward in your life without your son, thinking that you're moving forward beyond that. When you don't have answers, it's much different when you have closure and you know, like, he's not coming back, so I need to move forward with my life, versus he could come back. If I move, if I change something, if I'm gone, if I stop looking, what's going to happen? And so I'm sure that is holding everyone back in this family. And Eugene mentioned that the only reason he gets out of bed anymore is, the love for his family. He still very much wants to support Ariana and, has his family, and he's looking for Diamond and King. He doesn't want to give up on them, but he has to take antidepressants to even get out of bed, which I think that's fair for anybody. I mean, sometimes people become depressed just living their everyday life, let alone being in such horrific circumstances. So, I mean, I'm glad that he's found a way to cope and to be able to move forward some and keep living, even if, it's still just as hard. His whole family just it's amazing. They have pulled together to keep looking and keep Diamond and King's name out there, but I'm sure every single day is hard. I can't even imagine. I can't even begin to imagine what they're going through. LaShawn has said also, I can't keep going like this, not having no answers. I need an answer. I need to know what happened. I need closure. Everyone in this family desperately loves these two sweet people. You can just hear it in the way they talk about Diamond and King and what they've done and what they want done. They don't want to give up on them. You can just feel it in everything they say. They say it with so much love and with so much, passion that they're not going to give up, and they want help and they want more, and we're not giving up because we want Diamond and King home. I really, really hope they can get answers soon. And I also hope that Gary Police Department will stop acting like buttheads, because if they are ignoring LaShawn's calls or not calling her back, and they're backing out of press conferences, and on top of refusing to give the information a PI would need to help on the case, reevaluate what you're doing, realize you're doing a really bad job, and then, recalibrate. I really hope they do, lighten up on this and allow a PI to at least have access to the police report, enough information that it could get him started looking for Diamond and King, because I think a fresh new set of eyes is really what they do need at this point. Like I said, I hope they get answers. My heart goes out to everybody in this family: Eugene, LaShawn, Suzanne, Ariana, Joshua, Daisy. I mean, all of you. I can just tell how much they all love Diamond and King and how much they just don't want to give up on them. And I really, really hope that everyone gets answers soon so that we can either bring King and Diamond home or the family can start healing, because I really think it's impossible for them to heal completely without closure. Thank you so much for joining me today as we talked about King and Diamond. This is one of those that's the ones that get me are the cases where someone just poof, gone off the face of the earth. Where did they, they just got plucked up and we're gone. Nobody knows where they are. It blows me away because it's I feel like there should be some sign. Something should tell us where they are, a sighting, anything, but those things just don't happen. And so this is a case for me. These are the ones that really are what the heck? Because we all know that it's nearly impossible to fall off the face of the earth these days, to just have zero sign of you anywhere. And so that's what it feels like happened. LaShawn has literally said that it seems like they just disappeared off the face of the earth. And we all know that's not what happened. And who knows, maybe police actually have more information that they haven't shared with anybody, that, you know, maybe if they start letting it out a little bit, like, more people can be like, oh, I remember this happening, let's talk about that. Or I know this person, like, you should look for them here, or you should worry about this. And so I'm hoping that something like that is in the works, and maybe that's why Gary PD, like, refuses to give over the police report, because otherwise I don't really know how it all works. And to some extent, I understand having to keep the integrity of the case, having to not let someone from the outside come in and hurt it. But on the other hand, like, there's so little information, there's so little happening with the case that I don't know how it's going to hurt at this point. It's been 7 years. Let somebody else work on it for a little while. Like, it's not a year old, it's not 2 years old, it's not even 5 years old. We're at 7 years going towards, 8. It's time to let someone else give it a shot. If you have any theories, I would love to hear them in the comments below. Just, be sure to be respectful. You can also leave any future case suggestions down there. And if you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you would please consider leaving a like and then possibly subscribing so you can get a notification as soon as my next video goes up. And thank you again for joining me. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.